Good evening, and welcome to tonight's event, a special collaboration with GBH and the 9/11 Families Fund. I'm Catherine Craven. I'm the chairman of the Board of Education in Massachusetts, and the need for teaching civics and 9/11 education is bigger than ever before for us in this state. Teachers and students born after 9/11 have really no idea that grief and tragedy had such a local connection unless we keep the spirit and history of these events close to our minds. As the chairman of the Board of Education in Massachusetts, I know that our board is always looking to promote high-quality instructional materials that have impact, veracity, and reach to students and teachers across the Commonwealth. The lessons that are included in this GBH collaboration on 9/11 education are the strongest that we've seen. Lessons such as preventing historical revisionism, contextualizing current events, promoting a sense of what happened in terms of afterwards a national identity, honoring our brave first responders, and highlighting the resilience and empathy for the families and survivors. 11 members of our Board of Education saw the first clip of this tremendously accessible curriculum last month at our board meeting. We were awed, and it is not often that you get 11 people with such diverse backgrounds as the Board of Education to sit in shocked silence, but this happened because it was so impactful and so moving to see the materials that we're going to be talking about tonight. I do want to make sure that I invite you back every year so that we really keep with our promise of never forgetting 9/11 and the lessons of 9/11. And with that, I turn it over to you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. We're so pleased to have you with us this evening. I'm Elizabeth Gardner, a senior producer at GBH Education, and it was a privilege to collaborate with the incredible team at the Mass 9/11 Fund to develop this collection of videos and educational materials. I'm also serving as the moderator for tonight's discussion, and I am joined by our distinguished panelists. Pat Bavis is the Director of Education for the Mass 9/11 Fund. His brother Mark was on United Flight 175 that crashed into the South Tower. Pat is the president of the Mark Bavis Leadership Foundation, created in memory of Mark. Greg Rowe has been teaching for over 25 years and is currently the History and Social Studies Department Chair at Rockland High School and has also served as a school committee member in Middleborough. Mel Bissell, Social Studies Curriculum Specialist at GBH, is a career educator who has worked in high schools and middle schools as a teacher and curriculum coordinator, including over a decade of work at Nativity Prep, a middle school serving boys from low-income families in Boston, and she has served as a teacher educator for Boston College. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Mel, I'm going to start with you with the first question. We're going to run the first video now, and then we'll move to our questions. Thank you.
On the clear, nearly cloudless morning of September 11th, 2001, the United States experienced the single deadliest terrorist attack in its history. 4 commercial planes, each loaded with thousands of gallons of jet fuel, were hijacked and turned into guided missiles. Nearly 3,000 people from 90 countries lost their lives, including 2,753 people who were killed when the World Trade Center Twin Towers collapsed. The attacks began in Boston, far from the ultimate sites of destruction. 2 of the planes that struck the World Trade Center departed from Logan International Airport. The crews and many passengers on those flights were Massachusetts residents, making the state the starting point and home to some of the first victims of the attacks. The 9/11 attacks were planned and carried out by 19 men affiliated with Al-Qaeda, a terrorist network led by Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda spent years planning and training for a deadly attack on the United States. On the morning of September 11th, 5 hijackers boarded American Airlines Flight 11, and another 5 boarded United Airlines Flight 175 in Boston. At 7:59 a.m., Flight 11, carrying 76 passengers and 11 crew members, took off from Logan. 15 minutes later, at 8:14 a.m., Flight 175 with 51 passengers and 9 crew members followed. Both flights were bound for Los Angeles, but the hijackers diverted the planes to New York. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 was deliberately crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 slammed into the South Tower, leaving no doubt that America was under attack. American Airlines Flight 77 departed from Washington Dulles International Airport for Los Angeles at 8:20, carrying 53 passengers, 6 crew members, and 5 hijackers. It was crashed into the western side of the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m., killing all people on board and 125 civilian and military personnel inside the building. At 8:42 a.m., United Airlines Flight 93 departed from Newark Airport bound for San Francisco, with 33 passengers, 7 crew members, and 4 hijackers. When passengers on board learned of the attacks on the World Trade Center via phone calls, they courageously voted to storm the cockpit, preventing the hijackers from reaching their intended target, likely the U.S. Capitol. Instead, as the passengers attempted to regain control of the cockpit, the hijackers diverted the plane and crashed it into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Everyone on board was killed, but there were no fatalities on the ground. From the earliest moments, crew members and passengers stood at the forefront of warning and resistance. Flight 11 attendants Amy Sweeney and Betty Ong calmly and clearly communicated urgent updates to American Airlines staff on the ground, thereby alerting the world of the hijacking.
Which flight are you on? Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on Flight 11. We can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked.
Their calls revealed a terrifying scene: attacks, murders, and the threat of a bomb in the cockpit. Captain John Oganowski, a Massachusetts resident, Vietnam veteran, and veteran commercial pilot, was murdered while at the controls of Flight 11, but helped activate the cockpit radio, allowing authorities to hear the hijackers' actions. Passenger Daniel Lewin, a Cambridge tech innovator and former Israeli military officer, reportedly fought the hijackers before being fatally attacked. These victims showed incredible strength, focus, and resourcefulness in the midst of the attack, and were the first to alert, resist, and sacrifice. The Federal Aviation Administration ordered a nationwide ground stop at 9:25 a.m. on September 11th. All airborne flights were ordered to land immediately, and international flights were instructed to turn back or divert to Canada or other countries, emptying the skies for the first time in U.S. history. The nation responded to the attacks with a display of unity and resilience, guided by a promise to never forget, always remember.
Why did you take that approach?
We intentionally took that approach because this is now history. Seniors graduating right now were born in around 2008, and an estimated quarter to third of public school teachers are 35 or younger, meaning they were 10 or younger for 9/11. So just like Pearl Harbor or the moon landing, they want curricular materials. We present this as foundational material. As you saw in the video, we use lots of graphics, maps. It's set up in a timeline format, photographs, because we want students to really master those fundamentals. And although it is history, I want to note that every resource has tips for teachers, and we include a reminder to teachers that it's recent history and to be mindful of who might be in their classroom. There are going to be students who may have a personal connection to the tragedy, especially in a place like Massachusetts. After a foundational understanding, then they're ready for more complex topics. So this is sort of the gateway to later resources in our collection, and we end with the final question for students in our support materials, asking them what questions do they still have, so that teachers can gauge where they are after seeing this video, and also it is an indication to students that we're going to go further.
Thank you, Mel. Pat, could you tell us about the origins of the Mass 9/11 Fund and your connection to the organization?
Yes. The 9/11 Fund was created right after 9/11. Eric McLeish was the founder. He had the idea of this. He knew he couldn't just stand around, and he wanted to support family members that lost loved ones. Eric, along with the team of Faith Otter, John Curtis, Eric Lowry, Beth Chambers, Peg Hatch, the late Senator Kennedy, and also Marty Meehan. They all got together and created the 9/11 Fund. The 9/11 Fund, you know, where I was in life was different than where my mother and my sisters were in life. And for all the families, they actually were there to support the families through their crisis, trying to get them help financially. All the funds were in New York, but because the 9/11 Fund was created, they fought for every family. But also, I can remember to this day the emotional and spiritual healing they had coming to my mother's house, and just talking to my mother to get through these tough times. And as a group and as a foundation, I honestly think it was pretty powerful through these very difficult days. And then right after it, the Family Advisory Board, who are all volunteers, they all lost loved ones. It's Karen Gasanti, Pat Hoban, Leslie Blair, Iris Freeman, Diane Hunt, Teresa Matai. We're still on phone calls and doing Zoom calls and stuff, for the 25th anniversary, planning for it this year. So they all played a major role and still play a major role in the 9/11 Fund. Again, the 9/11 Fund helped out these families legally pro bono that, I'll be honest, because I knew for my mother's sake, she didn't know which direction to go. So it's a blessing that Eric created this, and we have it, and it's still going 25 years later.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pat. Greg, can you give us a sense of what students know or don't know about 9/11 when you begin teaching about this history, and why these resources are needed?
It's fascinating being an educator for over 20 years. This was very early in my career. In fact, my second year teaching when this event happened. And it was one of those things that everyone knows where they were when it happened. But then 10 years later, the kids would remember, I remember the way my parents acted, but I didn't understand what was going on. And now you have students and teachers who are not born when 9/11 happened, so they don't have that living memory. And it truly becomes part of your history curriculum, part of your history class. The way it's usually taught now is different than when I would have learned as a student, because back then it used to be all textbooks and dates and memorization. And this is one of the dates that they still do have to remember and still should know. But a lot of teaching now is through primary and secondary sources and real life tales of what went on. And with 9/11 in so much living history, the 9/11 Fund really has provided us resources to enhance that. Often today, you can find so many resources online, but it's hard to judge whether they're credible or not. But this is a perfect example of how you can get a credible source that tells not only the story of the national event that it was, but of the international event, and how local it was as well, and how much it impacts people that are here. So with this, in 9/11 in high schools, it is taught in the world history classes, the world history 2, but it is part of the 400-year history that we teach. And me as a world history teacher, I spend 3 times to 4 times as much on this as I do the American Revolution or the Civil War, due to the fact in the scope of the world, this was a much more impactful event. Then when you get to the US history, that's when the kids learn about the Civil War and everything else. And then when they get to junior year usually, or sometimes their sophomore year, they're in US history 2, and that's when they get to learn all about the last 100 years. And that's when this is brought up yet again, where teachers can go and delve really deep into how this impacted the country.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. Did you have something you wanted to add, or no?
Just looking at it, it is interesting to me that history now is so based on the stories from the people who were there, the stories of the people that experienced it. And we have these resources from the 9/11 Fund. We have these resources from around the state that they can go. And we were fortunate enough to go attend the annual ceremony on 9/11 at the State House. And I brought 10 students from Rockland High School, and 7 of them had never been to Boston before, and most of them had never been in the State House before. And I was so proud of them, because afterwards we're like, we can go start heading home now, and they're like, no, we want to go see the memorial in the garden. And they walked over to the garden and they get to see the memorial. And now, from now on, those students, when they bring their own kids later on, they'll know where that memorial is and what it stands for.
That's wonderful. Mel, could you talk about how the support materials created by the GBH education team help teachers guide students through complex topics?
9/11 is certainly complicated. I always picture myself standing in front of a classroom of 25 kids, and some of them are going to be feeling fear, anxiety, grief. Some are going to be very curious about the heroism, the resilience. They're all in different places. And there's a lot of complicated content here. So we provide teaching tips along with the videos, everything for free, online, available to all. And it breaks it down into manageable chunks. So before, during, and after viewing questions, every resource has an essential question that sort of guides the overarching theme of the resource. We have discussion questions, which we know teachers like to use for classroom conversation, but they also use them for exit tickets, homework, and finally, an additional aspect of the teaching tips is our Taking It Further section, where you can go a little bit further and really dive into something that students might be interested in. One example from this resource is we suggest that students interview somebody older and ask about their experience on September 11th. And we provide a bank of questions and encourage them to come up with questions on their own. And we want this to be more than just an in-class resource. We want this to be conversations on the car ride home and at the dinner table.
Before we watch the second video, I have a last question for you, Pat. Can you talk about how these resources build on the education and outreach work that the Mass 9/11 Fund has already been doing?
Yes. It's definitely going to make it easier. So I will tell you, over the last 15 years, we've been invited to several high schools to present and speak about 9/11 again. The teachers, the students, they weren't born. What you've built is now at the fingertips for all teachers and also for the students. For us to reach out to the 351 public schools in Massachusetts, we'd never get there. Now, with the promotion of PBS doing this and GBH doing this, this is now at the teachers' fingertips that they can teach every year. And it's a simple course to teach now, The presentations of the videos, the questions are great to get the students engaged. So it's so much more powerful than where we were. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Pat. Okay, so now we're going to watch a second video looking at how the world changed in the wake of 9/11.
The September 11th, 2001 attacks marked a turning point in U.S. society. In addition to the nearly 3,000 people who lost their lives, thousands more were injured, and the nation grappled with shock and uncertainty. The attacks brought immediate and lasting changes to Americans' daily routines, national security, and civil liberties. In the hours after the attacks on the World Trade Center, the United States faced an unprecedented emergency. Search and rescue efforts for survivors at the World Trade Center site, dubbed Ground Zero, began immediately. First responders dug through close to 2 million tons of rubble, hoping to find victims, with little success.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a difficult moment for America.
President George W. Bush was evacuated from a Florida elementary school on Air Force One. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld elevated the military's alert level to DEFCON 3, the highest state of emergency since 1973. And for the first time, shoot-down authority for hostile aircraft was given to military pilots.
We have taken a series of measures to prevent further attacks and to determine who is responsible.
New York City's financial district suffered widespread damage. The stock market closed until September 17th, its longest closure since 1933. And roughly $1.4 trillion in market value was lost. The airline, tourism, and insurance industries were also deeply impacted. Daily life was disrupted in other ways as well. Major League Baseball games and the National Football League season were delayed. Other cultural events, like the Primetime Emmy Awards and Latin Grammy Awards, were moved or canceled, while countless other public gatherings paused in tribute and uncertainty. In response to 9/11, the U.S. government made major changes to how it approached national security. On October 7, 2001, it launched the War on Terror, beginning with military action in Afghanistan against al-Qaeda and later expanding to Iraq. At home, agencies were reorganized to prevent future attacks. The Department of Homeland Security was formed to coordinate security, while the Office of the Director of National Intelligence aimed to improve communication between intelligence agencies. Everyday security also changed. The Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, implemented stricter airport rules and screenings, while the USA Patriot Act expanded government surveillance powers over phone calls, emails, and financial records.
With my signature, this law will give intelligence and law enforcement officials important new tools to fight a present danger.
In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, anti-Muslim bias increased. President Bush visited the Washington Islamic Center on September 17, 2001, and delivered a speech urging calm and respect for fellow citizens.
America counts millions of Muslims amongst our citizens. And Muslims make an incredibly valuable contribution to our country.
Thousands of people were injured during the attacks, and many developed long-term health problems, including respiratory illnesses, cancers, and PTSD. First responders and recovery workers received specialized medical care and compensation from 9/11 funds to address these ongoing effects. September 11th, 2001 fundamentally reshaped how Americans live, travel, and view their government. It prompted sweeping security measures, foreign wars, and national debates about privacy, justice, and equality. Even decades later, 9/11 continues to challenge Americans to consider how democracy can defend against terrorism while protecting its people and preserving its values.
Mel, could you talk about how these resources shape student understanding of the scope of 9/11?
Yes, as Greg already mentioned, having students understand this was a national and international event is really important. This is pivotal to our history. And so we try to impress that upon them in a number of ways, including the 3 videos and an alternate format of viewing the videos, which is in our interactive lesson on 9/11. This is just an alternate way to view the videos and in this interactive lesson, which is a student-facing and self-paced sequence of 10 pages. And on each page, students will complete work, answer questions, fill in charts, respond to quotes, things like that. Our interactive lesson features all 3 videos and gives us time to frame them or provide follow-up information so that students can better understand the vast effect of the events of the day. For example, the first video you watched featured 4 of the victims who behaved so heroically on 9/11. In the interactive lesson, after they view that video, they can go to a page and get more information on those 4, plus information on 2 others, Todd Beamer and Father Michael Judge, so they can see that there were many heroes on that day. Another example is, in this video you saw how the world changed, and we present similar information in a totally different format to appeal to different learners. And we have a page which is a chart, and it's 9/11 by the numbers, essentially. So it has all the statistics from 9/11 and includes, students have already heard that all 50 states were represented in the fatalities. We also say to them, all 50 states sent aid and support. Over 130 nations sent aid and support. And we talk about the destruction down at the World Trade Center site, and 16 acres and 7 to 10 stories high, to emphasize all of that. So this is just one more way that we can present the information in a way that emphasizes the scope.
And Greg, could you talk about how you plan to incorporate or fit these resources into the curriculum in your classroom in terms of scope and sequence?
What is really wonderful about these resources is it gives the educator the freedom to approach and integrate it the ways that they feel best fits their audience. I'm the father of a 14-year-old and 10-year-old, and the way we approach teaching them about 9/11, what happened, is different. Last summer, we got to visit the 9/11 Memorial in New York City, and my older daughter was much more interested and understood and could comprehend what was happening, as opposed to a 9-year-old boy who is just grasping how big this really was. So as I teach freshmen, a lot of it is giving them the core context. You need to place in history where it is, what is happening in the world, the background on why it happened. But then when you get into it, you need to give them the stats, the dates, the statistics, and give them that foundation. So when you start building out the curriculum, when you start building out the details, they understand what came before, what happened, and what came after. So usually I spend 3 to 4 days teaching this, and in my 9th grade classroom, a World History 2 classroom, there are 50 different standards and this is one of them. But I do spend a lot of time on this because, it is one of those things that they knew coming into it and they want to learn about. So I go into a lot of the details on what happened in Rockland that day, how different students were impacted. Not only were students, in school that day, but they had parents that were in the National Guard that got called up. They had parents who were in the medical field that were on call for the entire week. They had parents who were firefighters and police officers who were new friends and family that were impacted and their families would volunteer to serve in New York after this. So everyone was impacted in different ways. And those are the kind of stories that they remember. I spend all year going over different events in history, but when they get those personal, these are things you can relate to stories, that's what really grasps students. So with an educator, we can spend, those first few days kind of giving them the basic details that they should know and need to know that they didn't live through, but then spend the time with this great curriculum that we've been given to give them details. So these videos and these questions allow a teacher to approach it in a different way. There's 3 different segments we look at. You can have one each day. You can do all 3 in a row. You can have assignments based on them. You can give homework based on them. You can do it in class as a class discussion based on what it is. When I teach juniors, it's much more in depth, much more detailed on how it impacted the United States. While in world history, we go back and we discuss how it impacted the war on terror and how it expanded across the globe and all the allies that came to our assistance after and everything else. So in US too, our junior class, but it can be taught, sophomore year or junior year, it's one of 43 things, and it's given the same importance as an event like Vietnam is too. Something that impacted, those generations and something that impacts this generation. You can spend a lot of time and get into a lot of details on, and it's something that the students really do want to learn about, and it's up to us educators to use all the resources we have available to make sure the students understand how important this is, to the nation, to the state, and to never forget this day, and to always tell the kids what's going on.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. Pat, can you tell us what do you hope, what does the Mass 9/11 Fund hope these resources will accomplish?
First, reach every classroom in the state of Massachusetts. This was a Massachusetts event. The first 2 planes came out of Massachusetts. 206 families, 206 of our loved ones were lost that day, and 206 families are affected by it. We wanted that. It's at the fingertips of all the teachers in the schools. The students are understanding. I look at it as a current event because it's 25 years, but it seemed like yesterday. And I want the students to understand what happened in history to normal loved ones, residents from Massachusetts going to work, going on vacation, and they learn about it, that life is very delicate and it can be taken, and they'll be facing their own tragedies in life and how do they fight through it. But the big thing for what you guys have done, GBH and PBS, is you built this program so it's so user-friendly for the instructors, teachers, and for the students to be engaged with it. That, to me, if a teacher was alive when it happened, they know, as Greg said, they know where they were that day. And then for the teachers that weren't alive, and you teach in American history, like we teach about Bunker Hill or Lexington and Concord or the Civil War and stuff, this changed the world everywhere. And, these kids think it's normal. They go into a Fenway Park and, they're getting security checked up and down. Or the airports go there 3 hours early. Want to show you how a tragedy impacted the world and our country. And they learn how to fight through their difficult times. And the big thing, don't forget our loved ones. Always remember 9/11.
Can you tell us about the significance of the upcoming 25th anniversary of 9/11 for you?
First of all, I can't believe 25 years went by. But I look at, as a foundation or a fund, how we've evolved into where we were 15 years ago. Volunteers. Christy Coombs is in the audience. Christy, went around to a lot of schools with us and speaking to students and stuff and engaging them. What you guys have built is just, there's no excuses how it can't get taught into the schools. The difficulty of going to schools and think about, you get 800 kids into an auditorium and the logistics of how you get them out of there and how do you get them on buses to get home. Now, it's in the history class, you know, everything is just on the web. And also what I think is great about this is it's going to go nationally for us, that I honestly believe teachers from other states are going to see this program and how user-friendly it is. And they're going to be talking about it to their students, that their students truly understand the impact that 9/11 had. So,
Thank you, Pat. Greg, can you tell us why you'd recommend that teachers use these resources?
These resources are very user-friendly. When you look to connect with students, when it's teacher-driven, it's sometimes hits, sometimes doesn't. Your classroom should never be completely teacher-driven. So to find other resources, whether visuals or questions or activities, is a challenge in this emerging world where you're fighting for the kids' attention. And these resources can be used in a number of ways at a number of levels. Like I teach 9th grade and I'm able to use it absolutely no problem. I'm able to pick and choose exactly what I can. If you are teaching in the younger grades and that you're first introducing them and they're much younger, you can reduce the scope and approach it in a way that is age appropriate. And then as the students get older and understand the world better and understand what's going on, you can get really detailed and into like every small aspect that they should know before they graduate high school.
Thank you so much. So Mel, we're going to view the third video, which centers on the memorials and acts of remembrance associated with 9/11. Could you discuss the significance behind the creation of tributes and memorials?
Yes. This made me think about why we are here tonight. And we're here for two reasons. We're here because we care deeply about remembering September 11th. And we are also here because we care deeply about education. And memorials really tie those two ideas together. If we could put up the quote that students analyze after viewing this video. Our choices about who gets remembered, what gets remembered, where acts of remembrance take place, and how we express the significance of remembrance is as much or more about the future than the past. And this is from Edward Linenthal, a public historian. Students will view the video, they'll see this quote and the teaching tips, and they're asked to answer two questions related to the quote. What choices are reflected in the memorials shown in the video? And in what ways are these memorials about the past and the future? So we want them to make the connection. And this provides an opportunity to share in the teaching tips again, an opportunity for a really powerful culminating activity. And that is we ask students to design their own memorial. And we want them to do it with intentionality. We want them to identify who the memorial is for. Is it for first responders or flight crews or people still dealing with health issues? Where is the memorial placed? The placement is obviously key. The design of the space, is it a statue? Is it a museum? Is it a park? And then finally, how will people interact with this memorial? Is it educational in nature? Are they going to be reading and learning more? Are they going to be viewing images? Is it a place with a space for quiet reflection? And they will have seen examples of all of these in the video. So in doing that, they're drawing on all the knowledge they've gotten from these resources. They're making a decision about what they think is most important for everybody to know. And they're identifying a way to make sure that they know it, but also the generations after them, which is so important.
Thank you so much, Mel. We're going to watch the third video in the series now.
The September 11th, 2001 attacks and the sacrifices of those who were injured or killed are commemorated through memorials at the local, national, and international levels. Today, at Ground Zero in New York City, a new World Trade Center stands adjacent to the National September 11th Memorial and Museum, which honors those who died, displays artifacts, and provides educational resources. The memorial includes 2 reflecting pools set within the footprints of the Twin Towers, bordered by bronze walls inscribed with the names of all who perished. The memorial glade, a curving pathway with symbolic stone amidst ivy, grass, and trees, is dedicated to those who were sickened or lost their lives due to toxins at the crash sites. Annually, on September 11th, family members and others affected by the attacks gather to publicly read all 2,977 names. At the Pentagon, 184 benches honor the passengers and crew of Flight 77, as well as those who were killed inside the building. Inscribed with each name and arranged by the ages of the deceased from 3 to 71 years old, the benches are oriented to highlight views of the path of Flight 77 and the Pentagon. The Flight 93 National Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, honors the 40 passengers and crew who died on September 11th. A marble wall lists the names of all 40 individuals. Nearby, the Tower of Voices houses 40 wind chimes, each representing a life and voice lost. A large rock marks the crash site, and close access to this sacred ground is reserved for family members. The 206 people with Massachusetts ties who were killed on September 11th are remembered both as the first to fight the terrorists and as the first victims of the attacks. In the Boston Public Garden, the 9/11 Memorial features the Garden of Remembrance, where names are engraved on a granite semicircle embedded in the larger public green space, creating a serene urban refuge. Adjacent to the memorial, a sapling from the survivor tree at Ground Zero was planted to honor the resilience of family members who lost a loved one. Annually at the Massachusetts State House, the names of the Massachusetts victims are read aloud.
My beloved brother, Mark Lawrence Bavis.
And our uncle, John Rhett Cahill.
And my father, Alexander Milan Filipov.
And the Madeline Amy Sweeney Award for Civilian Bravery is given to one or more civilians. In 2002, 3 Flight 11 crew members received this honor posthumously, with their families accepting on their behalf. In December 2001, Congress designated September 11th Patriot Day, and since 2009, it has also been observed as a national day of service and remembrance. Tens of millions of Americans have participated in volunteer efforts that honor those lost on 9/11 and reflect the spirit of national unity that emerged in the fall of 2001. Taken together, the September 11th memorials not only honor those who perished, but preserve the stories, emotions, and lessons of that day for future generations. They stand as spaces for mourning and reflection, unity and resilience, and remind us of the human capacity to rebuild and move forward with purpose. In doing so, memorials and remembrance ceremonies help teach each generation that remembering the past can guide how we face challenges in the future.
We now have time for questions. If anyone would like to come up, we have a microphone set up right over here, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes. Good evening, and thanks for having this 9/11 memorial on the 25th upcoming anniversary. So my question is, will GBH incorporate into the educational series perhaps more pre- and post 9/11 historical facts?
Mel, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. We would love to. We would love to develop more. There's more to talk about. There's more to do. There's obviously, there are time and funding issues that make that, that would need to happen to make that possible. When we develop new resources, it's a very thoughtful process. We talk to subject matter experts, teachers, students, and then we decide what topics might be covered, how we will cover them, videos, interactives, whatever. And then we work on developing and bring those experts back. So we would love to develop more. I can't tell you right now the exact topics, but the things you named make a lot of sense. So I think it would be a great idea.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll wait a minute more in case there's any more questions or comments.
There you go.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Obviously, this was a huge event in a lot of people's living memory. Are there ways that we can replicate these types of resources because there are other events happening and have happened since then that could use this kind of special teaching and especially with regards to like having students talk to parents and talk to people who live through, and I'm not even thinking of anything in particular, but different events, can this be replicated and should we do that?
I think that's, I'll let Mel chime in here, but I think that's a great idea. And, with every set of resources that we develop and videos that we produce, as Mel said, we go through a very thorough process, and we make sure that we're getting a lot of input from our partners, in this case, Mass 9/11 Fund, from subject matter experts. We also do a lot of research with the videos and the resources that we develop, so we're able to then go out and actually see how students are interacting with them, how teachers are using them, what's working, what we can improve on next time. So I think we've learned a lot from this set of resources about how to cover an event like this and some of the approaches that we could take. So I think we would like to replicate this going forward when appropriate. Mel, anything else?
I completely agree with that. And if we were to do that, one of the first things I would want to do is talk to people like Greg and say, what are some of the other topics or areas where you would like to see similar content developed and resources developed?
Yes, go ahead.
I would just like to add to that, with us teaching, it is, we're in US 2 and World History 2, we're taught to present day. So I always tease my students that we're always adding history every day and need things. And having been a teacher for a couple decades now, we had a revamp of the curriculum in 2003. We had a revamp of the curriculum in 2018. When the 2003 curriculum came out, it was you needed to find the sources, look them up in libraries, make photocopies, everything else. When the 2018 resources came out, it was very clickable, and you could get links and connections to all sorts of multimedia, not just written primary sources. So I would love to see this resource and GBH resources put into the next round of resources for the state, so a teacher has direct access to it when they open up those frameworks that say you have to teach and you're a new teacher who wasn't around for that. Let's have that put into the suggested primary sources. The way, like right now, the resource they have for this is George Bush's speech to Congress. And I would love to see right underneath that, like, these are the stories of Massachusetts with the GBH. And this teacher could just click on that, and they'd open up all these wonderful resources that they do have. And I'll be honest, one of the things that I really like teaching about this event is to honor those that we lost that day. It is a day of service and remembrance. Like, in our town in Rockland, we do a walk every year at the track to remember those that were lost that day. And I know every town and community has their own things, and able to connect the kids to that, how you can give back and remember these people in such a good way is fantastic. So that idea that service and remembrance, I love that it's put right into the curriculum and right into the message of these videos.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for this event today. Just a quick question. How will you make sure that these resources get to teachers? I have friends in other states as well who I know would love to access these resources, so yeah.
So they are available on PBS Learning Media. They are free and available for students and educators all across the country. So they're there, and any teacher can use them. We also need to make sure that teachers know that they're there. So that's part of why we're doing events like we're doing here tonight. We do webinars. We're going to be doing a webinar in August. So we have a list of social studies teachers from across the country, and they'll be aware that this webinar is happening, that these resources are available to them, especially ahead of the 25th anniversary. And we have a marketing and outreach team whose job is to make sure that teachers are aware of resources like this. So please also spread the word. And I know the Mass 9/11 Fund has also been a great partner for us in spreading the word as well.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I have a quick question about the way that it's divided in the chunking for accessibility. So although we didn't see closed captioning today, I'm assuming that's something that you guys have, and it's not just so it is fully functional.
Yes. It's
in terms of transcription for multilingual students, have you guys gone into that and delved into multiple language transcription for the audio?
That is something that is a priority for us and something that we do want to do. For this first presentation and pass, we have the closed caption and we have transcripts that are always available with all of the videos we produce and all of the resources. There are some resources on PBS Learning Media where we have been able to raise the funds to provide translations. So it's something that is important to us and that we're thinking about how we can do going ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. If there's any more questions, please feel free to walk up. And if not, we just want to say thank you so much for coming out tonight. We truly appreciate your presence here. And to learn more or access the materials that we discussed during the session, please stop by the GBH information table located at the back of the room. I just want to thank our panelists for being here tonight. We're so appreciative of you taking the time and sharing your insights with us. It really means a lot to us, so thank you so much. And I was going to say enjoy the beautiful spring evening, but it's now pouring rain, so stay dry. Thank you so much.